Toy Story 5 is amazing and impressed a lot of people, both longtime fans and newer ones. But did you know that even this movie has several little mistakes that most people never notice? When Jessie goes looking for batteries and stops in front of a bookshelf, you can see that there are 3 books sitting in front of it. In fact, Smarty Pants even climbs on those books to reach the top of the shelf. So far, so good, but after some of the other toys that were inside the drawers get activated, something changes. Now there's only a single book in front of the bookshelf. What happened to the other 2 that were stacked on top of it before? It looks like they suffered the cruel fate of being forgotten by the animators. And we're just getting started because we're about to talk about the 15 incredible mistakes you didn't notice in Toy Story 5.
It's time to have fun with us in another Cinewave.
It's really cool to see Jessie return to Emily's bedroom, her very first owner, after so many years, especially because the cowgirl even remembers what the room used to look like. Anyone who watched Toy Story 2 knows that Emily's room also appeared in a flashback in that movie. The problem is that the version of the room we see in the Toy Story 5 flashback looks a little different. First, the wall behind the bed has posters on it. In the flashbacks from the second movie, that wall was completely empty. On top of that, in Toy Story 2, there was a window on the wall to the left of the bed. That window has disappeared in Toy Story 5. We don't see it either in the flashback or in the modern version of the room, where the window is now on the wall behind the bed all the way to the right. When Jessie goes to talk to Lilypad for the first time, she says that the toys spent the entire summer trying to help Bonnie make new friends, and then points to the other toys in the room. The next time we see those toys is in the very same scene, when Lilypad makes Jessie speak Spanish, which leaves everyone shocked. The strange part is that only a few seconds have passed, yet the positions of some of the toys have completely changed without any explanation. Earlier, Slinky, the spring dog, was standing in front of Trixie, the blue dinosaur. Yet within just a few seconds, he has moved and is now right beside her. Why would he move in such a short amount of time? The answer is simple: he didn't move. Pixar simply forgot where they had placed him. Who would have thought a movie like Toy Story 5 would have a mistake like that? At the moment when Bonnie is getting ready for her very first sleepover, Jessie and Bullseye hide inside her suitcase so they can come along. Now, do you know who isn't inside any suitcase? Lilypad. So answer this: how does Bonnie suddenly pull Lilypad out of the suitcase when she arrives at her friend's house? When the suitcase was closed, the tablet was still sitting on the shelf. Could Lilypad secretly know how to teleport and just never told us? Well, that would be pretty cool, but it's much more likely that this is a plot hole that very few people noticed, especially because we were all too busy being annoyed with Lilypad during this part of the movie. To get Bonnie to interact with her neighbors, Jessie runs to the sidewalk and pulls the string on her back to activate her voice box and get Bonnie to follow her. But there's something very strange about that. Bonnie had been playing with Jessie inside the backyard just a few seconds earlier. Then, all of a sudden, Jessie appears on the sidewalk, and Bonnie doesn't find that strange at all. How did Bonnie not realize that Jessie had somehow moved from one place to another? She should have remembered that she hadn't even taken her toys anywhere near the sidewalk. We all know Bonnie is just a child, but even girls her age don't have such terrible memories that they'd forget their doll wasn't outside the backyard the last time they saw her, which was less than a minute earlier. If Bonnie keeps this up, we're going to start thinking she has the same memory problems as Dory from Finding Nemo. Do you think that doesn't make much sense either? If so, leave a comment below. #mistakes. During the wedding between Forky and Karen Beverly at the beginning of the movie, Jessie shouts that someone poisoned the maid of honor, played by Rex as part of Bonnie's little game. But Rex only turns purple and starts getting covered in bubbles after Jessie says that. Unless Jessie was actually the one responsible for poisoning the maid of honor in Bonnie's story, this is a plot hole, because she shouldn't have known Rex had been poisoned before he started showing any symptoms. At least in this case, we can imagine that the mistake happened only because all of this is taking place inside Bonnie's imagination. Since she's just a child, she doesn't put much thought into the stories she creates during playtime, and ends up making this kind of contradiction. After Rex gets poisoned in the game, Buzz Lightyear runs over to him and starts giving him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to save him. Right before he starts doing that, Buzz says he's going to give the dinosaur the kiss of life. But if we pay close attention, we'll realize that's nowhere near a kiss. The astronaut literally shoved his entire face into Rex's mouth and blew air inside. Once again, we have to ask ourselves, was this a mistake by the animators or by Bonnie? It would make sense if it were Bonnie's doing, since she's very young and might not even know how a real kiss works. When Bonnie leaves her toys inside a basket, Rex's leg is barely visible at first because Karen Beverly is standing in front of it. However, when the camera shows the other side of the basket, Rex's leg becomes completely visible, which makes sense since there's nobody blocking it from that angle. The problem is that now his leg looks much larger than Karen Beverly in a way that can't be explained by perspective alone. In other words, Karen Beverly's body shouldn't have been able to cover Rex's leg. What's the logic behind that? To make things even worse, Forky somehow manages to grow in size and end up with his face above Rex's leg. He and Karen Beverly are supposed to be the same height, but in this scene, he's much taller than she is. The only explanation would be that Forky climbed on top of another toy, but we never see anything like that happen, so something is clearly very wrong here. Maybe the animators even realized that nothing in this scene made sense, but figured nobody would notice because of how many toys were piled together inside the basket. Unfortunately for them, we noticed, and we thought it was pretty funny. Do you agree, or do you think even the Pixar animators never noticed these mistakes? The scene where Woody reunites with his old friends is unforgettable, both because of the nostalgia and because it's so funny, especially since Woody is now starting to go bald and get a bit of a belly. It's also hilarious that many people didn't even notice a continuity error that happens here. When Woody hangs up his red cloak and his hat, it's easy to see that the pens being used as hooks aren't completely covered by the clothing. Even so, the moment Buzz Lightyear enters the scene and walks over to Woody, the red cloak suddenly starts covering the pen it's hanging from completely. And it's not just because we're seeing the scene from a different angle. If that were the case, we'd still be able to see at least half of the pen.
Want to keep having fun with us? Then subscribe and turn on the notification bell.
There is one fundamental rule that every toy follows in the world of Toy Story. It is completely forbidden to reveal that they are alive to a human being. However, some people have pointed out that Toy Story 5 has the characters taking some huge risks. There are many scenes where they put that secret in serious danger by moving around near humans in a much bolder way than they ever did in the previous movies. A great example is when Jessie is trying to escape from the car of the elderly couple who captured her in Bullseye. The cowgirl is trying to be discreet, but even so, she keeps moving while sitting right between the two seniors. It would only take one of them turning their head in her direction for a second to notice that she was moving. Since Jessie is the main character of this movie instead of Woody, Bullseye also ends up getting more attention because he's her horse. The funny part is that this reminds us of a possible plot hole that doesn't just exist in Toy Story 5. It may have been there ever since Toy Story 2, when Jessie and Bullseye were first introduced. The thing is, the cowgirl's horse behaves exactly like a real animal. He doesn't talk, he likes licking things, and so on. But if you think about the other characters that have been part of the franchise since the beginning, you'll realize there are plenty of other animal toys as well. However, unlike Bullseye, those other characters can talk and behave like humans. Rex, Ham, Slinky, and Trixie are animals only in appearance, while Bullseye genuinely acts like a horse. What's the reason behind that? Or is there no reason at all, making this just another plot hole? A lot of people have wondered how all toys know they're not supposed to reveal themselves to humans, and Toy Story 5 finally gave us an answer through the MultiBuzz army, a group of highly advanced Buzz Lightyears who don't even know they're toys, just like Buzz in the first movie. Whenever a person gets close to them, they instinctively freeze in place, suggesting that this behavior is natural for toys, and that even those who don't know they're toys still do it. While that's a pretty good explanation, it's still suspicious that nothing like this was ever mentioned in the previous films. The original Buzz also froze whenever humans were around from the very first Toy Story, but it always seemed like he was simply copying the other toys. Speaking of the MultiBuzz army, there's another detail related to them that's a little strange. The movie begins with a shipment full of Buzz Lightyear action figures crashing onto an island, but these aren't ordinary models. They're high-end, high-tech editions loaded with extremely advanced features. In other words, the disappearance of all those figures would have certainly caused a huge financial loss for the company that manufactures them. Even so, there were no news reports about the accident, which might be a plot hole because something like that would be major news in real life. Unless, of course, the accident is being covered up to avoid hurting the company's sales. Another possible plot hole involves the twins who don't want to be friends with Bonnie. Even though they don't play with toys anymore because they're obsessed with their tablets, their very first appearance shows the two of them running after each other, most likely playing tag. So even if they no longer have fun playing with toys, the twins still enjoy other kinds of games and activities. If you really think about it, Bonnie could probably have gotten closer to them by trying to play tag with them or something similar. Why didn't that idea ever cross Jessie's mind? Probably because nobody working on the movie noticed it.
The next step is right in front of you. 2 fun-filled videos waiting for your click. Thanks, and see you soon.